How to never get angry or bothered by anyone. Be unshakable. Imagine this. You're sitting in traffic, already running late for an important meeting. Suddenly, someone cuts you off, and your immediate reaction is a rush of frustration. Your heart starts racing. Your mind begins to stew. And before you know it, anger takes over. You've been there, right? It happens to all of us. But here's the thing. What if I told you that you don't have to let that anger take control? What if I told you that you have the power to not only stay calm, but to actually choose how to respond, no matter what the world throws your way? This isn't just wishful thinking or a fluffy motivational statement. It's grounded in ancient wisdom, Stoic philosophy. If you're unfamiliar with Stoicism, don't worry. This philosophy, which dates back over 2,000 years, holds the key to mastering your emotions, especially anger. And I'm not talking about pretending to be calm or bottling up your feelings. Stoicism teaches us to respond to life's challenges in a way that doesn't disturb our inner peace. It shows us how to remain unshaken no matter what happens around us. Think about the people in your life who consistently push your buttons. Maybe it's a colleague who always interrupts, a friend who never seems to listen, or a family member whose actions seem to constantly rile you up. You've probably found yourself thinking, why does this always happen to me? Why can't they just leave me alone? But what if the real question is, why do you allow these people to get under your skin? What if you had the tools to navigate those situations with calm and clarity rather than frustration? In this video, I want to take you on a journey through Stoic wisdom that can help you completely transform your relationship with anger and frustration. We're going to look at how ancient Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, dealt with anger and what lessons we can apply in our own lives. By the end of this, you'll understand why it's not the world or other people that make you angry, but your own reaction to them. And more importantly, you'll learn how to reclaim your peace and never let anyone bother you again. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that everything is fine. It's about gaining control over how you perceive the world and how you respond to it. The truth is, the power to stay unbothered is already inside of you. You just need to tap into it. So, if you're tired of letting anger take over and you want to learn how to live with a calm, peaceful mind, no matter what life throws your way, stick around. This is the beginning of your journey toward emotional freedom and Stoic wisdom. Let's dive in. Section 1. The nature of anger. Anger. We all know it. We've felt it, seen it, and maybe even regretted it afterward. But what exactly is anger, and why do we get so consumed by it? To understand how to control it, we first need to break down what anger really is, both from a psychological perspective and the lens of Stoic philosophy. At its core, anger is an emotion triggered by our perception of something we believe is unjust or wrong. It's an intense feeling, often accompanied by a rush of physical sensations, increased heart rate, clenched fists, a racing mind. And while anger is a natural emotional response, it can quickly spiral into something more destructive if we're not careful. That's the key here. It's not the anger itself that's the problem, but what we do with it once it arises. From a psychological standpoint, anger is often seen as a response to a perceived threat or unfair treatment. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you feel your sense of control slipping away. You're late, frustrated, and now someone has crossed a line. Anger can feel like a quick way to regain a sense of power in an uncontrollable situation. But here's the catch. That feeling of power is fleeting, and it comes at a cost. When we give in to anger, we lose control of our own peace of mind. Instead of solving the problem, anger often amplifies it. We might say something we regret, act impulsively, or let our emotions cloud our judgment. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that emotions like anger arise not from the external events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. For instance, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, the external world can't make us angry unless we let it. It's our perception of a situation that ignites the fire of frustration. The key to Stoic wisdom is learning how to change that perception. Think about this. When someone cuts you off in traffic, it's not really the act of being cut off that's angering you, it's the thought that the driver is inconsiderate or that you're being disrespected. That thought is what fuels your frustration. The Stoics teach us that instead of immediately reacting with anger, we should pause and question those judgments. Ask yourself, is this really something I should be upset about? Or, what can I control in this situation, and what can I not control? The more you practice this mindset, the more you'll see that anger has far less power over you than you might have believed. And let's not forget the harm that anger can cause. It's easy to overlook, but constant anger and frustration affect both our mental and physical health. From a mental standpoint, anger clouds our thinking. It prevents us from seeing things clearly and making rational decisions. And physically, anger is stressful on the body. Chronic anger can lead to health issues like high blood pressure, heart disease, and even digestive problems. The damage done by a single outburst can ripple through your life in ways you might not immediately recognize. Now you might be thinking, but sometimes I need to be angry. Anger helps me express myself. And yes, there are moments where anger can signal that something isn't right or that we need to set boundaries. But the Stoics argue that we don't need to become angry in order to express ourselves or seek justice. In fact, acting from a place of anger often clouds our ability to communicate effectively or solve problems. The Stoic path is about using reason, not emotion, to guide our actions. By staying calm, we can think clearly and take the best course of action without being emotionally driven. Section 2, the Stoic approach to emotions. Now, let's dive into how Stoicism offers a powerful framework for dealing with anger and other emotions. The key idea here is the dichotomy of control. This concept is at the heart of Stoic thought, and it's something that can completely change the way you handle emotions like anger. The dichotomy of control is simple. Some things are within our control, and others are not. The Stoics believe that the only thing we can truly control is ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. Everything else, the external world and other people's behavior, is beyond our control. This means that when something happens that frustrates us, like someone cutting us off in traffic or saying something rude, we have a choice. We can choose to react in a way that aligns with our values, or we can let our emotions dictate our behavior. The Stoics encourage us to focus only on what's in our control, our own reactions, and let go of the things we cannot control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor, understood this deeply. In his meditations, he repeatedly reminds himself to focus on what he can control, his own thoughts and actions. When faced with challenges, he would reflect on the fact that other people's behavior is beyond his control. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the cornerstone of Stoic emotional control. We don't need to let external events disturb our inner peace because we have the power to control how we respond to them. To put this into practice, let's look at how you might apply the dichotomy of control to a situation where you feel angry. Imagine you're having a disagreement with a colleague. They're raising their voice, and you feel your anger start to rise. According to Stoic thought, you don't need to be upset by their behavior. You can remind yourself that you can't control how they speak or act, but you can control your own response. Rather than reacting with anger, you can choose to stay calm, respond thoughtfully, and approach the situation with patience. This is where true power lies, not in trying to control others, but in mastering your own responses. Another Stoic tool to manage anger is understanding the role of perception. The Stoics teach us that it's not the event itself that causes our emotional reactions, but how we interpret it. This is why two people can experience the same situation and have completely different emotional responses. One person may get angry, while another remains calm. The difference? Their perception of the situation. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, taught that we should not be disturbed by things, but by our judgments about things. In other words, it's the judgments we make about a situation, our thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations that trigger our emotions. So, when you're about to get angry, take a moment to question those judgments. Ask yourself, what am I assuming about this situation that's making me angry? And then challenge those assumptions. This practice of shifting your perception is a powerful way to prevent anger from taking hold. By understanding the dichotomy of control and the power of perception, you can begin to change the way you respond to life's challenges. The Stoics didn't just tell us to suppress our emotions or pretend to be calm. They taught us that we can choose how to react based on reason and virtue, rather than being slaves to our emotions. By practicing these Stoic principles, you'll find that anger becomes less of a reflex and more of a conscious choice. And over time, you'll develop the ability to remain calm and unbothered, no matter what the world throws at you. Section 3. How Stoics deal with anger. The Stoics didn't just theorize about controlling anger, they lived it. The lives and writings of figures like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus offer a rich source of wisdom for dealing with anger in a calm, rational way. The way these Stoic thinkers handled anger in their own lives serves as a powerful example of how we, too, can apply Stoic teachings to transform our emotional responses. Let's start with Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor. His life was filled with challenges, wars, political strife, and personal loss. Yet, he was known for his composed and rational demeanor. In his personal reflections, collected in the book Meditations, Marcus consistently reminded himself that anger was a weakness, a reaction to things beyond his control. He would ask himself, what's the point of being angry with this situation? Is it really worth disturbing my peace of mind? For Marcus, the answer was always no. He recognized that anger was a distraction from his duties and a threat to his well-being. Instead of reacting impulsively, Marcus chose to reflect on how he could approach the situation with reason, understanding, and empathy. For example, if someone wronged him, he wouldn't immediately retaliate with anger. Instead, he would think about the person's intentions, their struggles, and their human frailties. His goal wasn't to judge them harshly, but to understand them deeply so that he could maintain his own tranquility. Seneca, another key Stoic philosopher, had his own approach to anger. In his letters, Seneca wrote extensively about the dangers of rage and how it erodes the mind. He said, "Anger is a short madness," meaning that when we allow ourselves to be consumed by anger, we lose our rational thinking and act irrationally. For Seneca, The key to managing anger was self-awareness and reason. He advised that when anger begins to rise, we should pause and reflect, why am I angry? What am I really upset about? This pause, Seneca argued, gives us the opportunity to detach from the emotion and regain control. Epictetus, the Stoic slave turned philosopher, also had a powerful message about anger. He taught that anger is a result of the judgments we make about the world. When something happens that disturbs us, Epictetus believed we should immediately ask ourselves, can I control this? Or is this something outside of my control? This simple question helps us step away from the emotional reaction and refocus on what we can actually influence, our own actions and thoughts. Epictetus was not about suppressing emotions, but about recognizing that our anger is rooted in our own perceptions and judgments. When we understand that external events don't have the power to make us angry, we can respond from a place of reason and self-control. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This philosophy is a game changer when it comes to anger, because it places the responsibility for our emotional responses squarely in our hands. These Stoic philosophers didn't teach us to bottle up our anger or ignore it. Instead, they taught us to recognize it as a natural emotion and then choose how to respond to it. The Stoic way is to reflect on the causes of our anger, challenge our perceptions, and respond with reason and understanding. By doing so, we can turn a potentially destructive emotion into an opportunity for growth. Section 4. Stoic Tools and Techniques for Managing Anger. Now that we've looked at how the Stoic philosophers dealt with anger in their lives, let's dive into some practical tools and techniques that you can use to manage anger in your own life. These Stoic strategies will help you stay calm, composed, and in control, no matter what challenges or frustrations come your way. 1. Reframing the situation. The first tool that the Stoics use to manage their emotions is reframing. This is the practice of changing your perspective on a situation so that it no longer triggers an emotional reaction. It's about looking at events through a different lens, one that allows you to see them as less threatening or frustrating. For example, let's say a colleague at work says something rude or dismissive to you. The natural response might be to feel anger or resentment. But with reframing, you could pause and ask yourself, why might they be acting this way? Are they going through something difficult? Are they feeling stressed or overwhelmed? By seeing the situation from their perspective, you can reduce the emotional charge of the situation and prevent yourself from getting angry. Reframing allows you to realize that the behavior of others is often more about their own struggles or insecurities than about you. By adjusting your perception of the situation, you can prevent yourself from taking it personally and maintain your calm. 2. Journaling for reflection and clarity. One of the most powerful practices in Stoicism is journaling. Marcus Aurelius himself was an avid journaler, and his meditations are a testament to how writing can help us process our emotions and gain clarity. When you feel anger rising, try taking a few minutes to write down what's happening. What triggered the anger? What are the underlying thoughts and beliefs driving your emotional reaction? Journaling helps you step outside of the immediate emotional experience and reflect on it with greater objectivity. It allows you to see the situation more clearly and often helps you realize that anger is not as justified as it might initially feel. You can also use journaling as a way to reinforce Stoic teachings. After reflecting on an emotional situation, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? How can I practice patience and understanding next time? This kind of reflection helps you learn from each experience and build stronger emotional resilience over time. 3. Mindfulness and presence. The Stoics were all about living in the present moment. Anger often arises when we ruminate on the past or worry about the future. We get angry about things that have already happened or things that haven't even occurred yet. To manage anger, it's important to practice mindfulness to bring your focus back to the present moment. When you feel anger starting to bubble up, take a deep breath and ground yourself in the present. Focus on what is happening right now, not what happened earlier or what might happen later. By anchoring yourself in the present moment, you give yourself space to make a thoughtful, rational response instead of reacting impulsively out of anger. 4. Self-talk and affirmations. Another powerful Stoic tool is self-talk. The Stoics understood that our internal dialogue shapes our emotional responses. When anger arises, it's important to use rational self-talk to counteract those impulsive emotional reactions. For example, when you're angry, remind yourself, "This situation is beyond my control. I can only control how I respond." Or, "This anger will only hurt me, it won't solve anything." Affirmations like these help you shift from an emotional reaction to a more reasoned, calm response. By consciously choosing your thoughts, you can rewire your brain to stay calm in stressful situations. 5. Visualizing challenges before they happen. One last tool from Stoic philosophy is the practice of premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. This is the Stoic practice of visualizing potential challenges or difficulties before they happen, so you can prepare yourself mentally. The Stoics believed that by imagining worst-case scenarios, we could reduce our emotional reactions when those situations actually arise. Before you go into a challenging situation, whether it's a difficult conversation, a stressful work task, or something as simple as running errands, take a moment to imagine how things might go wrong. Then, think about how you would handle the situation with calm, grace, and patience. By mentally preparing yourself for adversity, you'll be less likely to react with anger or frustration when it happens. Section 5. Turning anger into opportunity for growth. Anger, like any strong emotion, doesn't have to be something that ruins us or drives us toward negative outcomes. In fact, the Stoics teach us that anger can be a powerful tool for personal growth if we learn how to view it differently. Instead of letting it be a destructive force, we can use it as an opportunity to develop patience, wisdom, and self-discipline. The first step is recognizing that anger, when approached with mindfulness, can teach us something valuable about ourselves and the world around us. The Stoics often viewed emotional disturbances, such as anger, as a mirror. When you feel angry, it's an indication that something within you, your beliefs, expectations, or attachments, needs to be examined. For example, the next time you feel anger rising within you, take a moment to reflect on the source of that anger. Is it a perceived injustice, a broken expectation, or perhaps is it a situation where you feel your control has been threatened? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, encouraged self-examination in the face of anger. He wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself, what fault of mine is it that I am about to correct in this person?" This kind of introspection can turn anger into an opportunity for self-growth. Instead of focusing on the external behavior of others, the Stoics urge us to look inward. What does this situation reveal about your own values, assumptions, or desires? By examining your emotional responses, you gain insight into what truly matters to you and where you might need to adjust your mindset. Anger can also provide an opportunity to practice empathy. When someone treats us unfairly or rudely, it's easy to become defensive, to build walls, or to lash out. But the Stoic approach challenges us to step into the other person's shoes. Maybe they're acting out of fear, frustration, or insecurity, just as we sometimes do. When we choose to respond with empathy, we're not excusing bad behavior, but we're choosing to release the grip of anger and replace it with understanding. Epictetus reminds us that people act according to their perceptions, just as we do. If we approach others with this understanding, we begin to dissolve the seeds of anger before they can grow. Furthermore, the Stoics teach us that conflict and adversity are inevitable parts of life, but they don't have to define us. In fact, we can find our truest selves through struggle. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every time you confront anger with patience, you're becoming stronger, more resilient, and more virtuous. Anger is an opportunity for us to practice self-control, one of the most valued Stoic virtues. The more we practice managing our anger, the more we sharpen our character and grow into the best version of ourselves. Lastly, the Stoics emphasize gratitude in the face of difficulty. Instead of seeing challenges and anger as burdens, we can view them as chances to develop resilience and gratitude. Every time something tests our patience or raises our frustration, we have the opportunity to turn it into a lesson. By practicing gratitude for the lessons learned in difficult situations, we can take even the most frustrating experiences and transform them into something positive. Section 6. Living stoically in a modern world. Now that we've covered how to turn anger into an opportunity for growth, let's talk about how to apply Stoic principles to everyday life, especially in our modern, fast-paced world where anger is often a default response. Living stoically in today's world can feel like a challenge. We live in a society that constantly bombards us with triggers for stress and frustration. Social media, work pressures, traffic, even family dynamics, every day offers countless opportunities to get upset. But here's the truth. It's precisely in these moments that Stoic wisdom shines the brightest. The Stoic way of life is timeless and incredibly relevant today. The first principle of living stoically in a modern world is realizing that the core of Stoic philosophy isn't about avoiding difficult situations. Instead, it's about how we choose to respond to them. Modern life may throw chaos our way, but the Stoics teach us to remain steady and in control, no matter what is happening around us. One of the most powerful ways to apply Stoic principles is to practice the dichotomy of control in all aspects of your life. At work, when a colleague criticizes you unfairly, remember that you can't control their behavior, but you can control your reaction. At home, if a family member says something that frustrates you, you don't have to react with anger or resentment. You can choose how to respond. By constantly reminding yourself of the dichotomy of control, you become less reactive and more proactive. Instead of focusing on what others are doing, you focus on what you can control: your thoughts and your actions. Another important Stoic practice is mindfulness. In our busy world, it's easy to get caught up in distractions and lose sight of what truly matters. Stoics were all about living in the present moment, and we can apply this to our lives today by consciously focusing on the present, whether it's in a conversation, a work task, or even a difficult situation. When anger arises, the Stoics teach us to pause, reflect, and choose a measured response. This doesn't mean repressing your feelings, but rather taking a moment to observe your emotional state and then choosing a response based on reason, not emotion. The Stoics also taught us to embrace adversity as part of life. In modern life, we often go out of our way to avoid discomfort or inconvenience. We look for quick fixes to make things easier. But the Stoic approach is different. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities to grow. Whether it's a traffic jam, a tough day at work, or an argument with a loved one, every difficulty can be an opportunity to practice Stoic virtues like patience, resilience, and gratitude. When you embrace adversity, you begin to see it not as a threat, but as a chance to sharpen your mind and your character. Finally, building a Stoic mindset takes time and practice. It's not something you master overnight, but rather something you incorporate into your daily routine. Start small. When something happens that frustrates you, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what can I control here? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? Over time, these small moments of reflection will add up, and you'll find yourself handling challenges with much more ease and grace. In a world that often feels out of control, Stoicism offers a sense of inner peace that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. The Stoics believe that no matter what happens in life, you always have the power to choose your response. The more you practice this, the more peace you will find. It's not about avoiding challenges, but about learning how to navigate them with wisdom, patience, and self-control. And as you live more stoically, you'll discover that anger no longer has the power to disrupt your peace. You'll become more resilient, more present, and more capable of living a calm and purposeful life, no matter what comes your way. Conclusion: embracing Stoicism for a life free from anger. As we wrap up this journey through Stoic wisdom, one thing should be crystal clear. Anger doesn't have to be an automatic response to the world around us. Through the teachings of the Stoics, we've learned that we can take control of how we react, transform our emotions, and live with greater peace and resilience. Stoicism doesn't promise that life will always be easy, but it does give us the tools to face adversity with wisdom, patience, and composure. The key takeaway here is that anger, like any emotion, arises from our perceptions and judgments. By practicing the dichotomy of control, we can shift our focus to what is within our power, our thoughts, responses, and actions. We can choose not to let the behavior of others or external circumstances disturb our peace. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can take a moment to pause, reflect, and choose a calm, reasoned response. The lives of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus offer timeless examples of how Stoic philosophy can be applied to everyday life. They showed us that anger is not something we have to give in to, it's something we can control and transform. The Stoic path is one of constant practice, but with time, it leads to greater emotional mastery and deeper inner peace. So, how can you start living more stoically? Begin with small steps. Remind yourself that you control how you respond, not how others behave. Use mindfulness to stay present, and practice reframing situations to view them with more compassion and understanding. Keep a journal, reflect on your emotional responses, and ask yourself how you can grow from each experience. Remember, you have the power to remain calm and unshaken. Life will always present challenges, but with Stoicism, you have the strength to face them without anger clouding your judgment. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, go out and practice Stoic wisdom every day. Choose peace, choose understanding, and choose to live unbothered.